So in the end, he obviously didn't himself, just like Jeffrey Epstein. Shut up. I know he's your friend, but I don't care. You had to make your own way here in your own plane, didn't you?
The Chris Tucker that we got now is Epstein Island Chris Tucker, not Smokey.
Oh, Lord.
Where is Diddy any different than Epstein? Really? Where is it any different? What's the difference? Why is nobody paying attention to the fact that there were underage girls that were allegedly attached to Diddy as well? Unfortunately, one of them, Anna Kane, who was a as well.
Imagine this scene for a moment. A comedian steps onto one of Hollywood's most glamorous stages, looks directly at some of the most powerful figures in the entertainment industry, and speaks in a way that suggests he knows their secrets. And that is exactly what Ricky Gervais did at the 2020 Golden Globe Awards. And for years, most people believed it was simply bold and fearless comedy, pushing boundaries. But then the so-called files were released, and suddenly the tone shifted, and the laughter faded. Because what Gervais said that night no longer sounded like just a joke. And instead, when viewed now, it feels more like a direct warning aimed at an elite circle that had operated for decades with almost unbelievable freedom. As he stood there holding a beer, looking out at a room filled with uneasy smiles and shifting expressions, and said the things many in that room clearly did not want spoken out loud, while the cameras captured every moment of discomfort. And now, with the release of major documents that followed, the Golden Globes moment carries a completely different meaning. So today, the focus is on breaking down what really happened, who has been mentioned, what the files actually reveal, and why so many well-known faces suddenly seem to be avoiding the spotlight. And to understand it fully, it is necessary to go back to January 6, 2020, at the Beverly Hilton during the 77th Golden Globe Awards, where Ricky Gervais returned as host for what he repeatedly insisted would be his final time, stepping onto the stage with an energy that made it immediately clear this would not be a comfortable night for anyone watching, as he opened with sharp remarks, suggesting viewers could have spent their time watching his show After Life instead, a story about a man dealing with his wife's death from cancer that he joked was still more enjoyable than the ceremony itself. And then, with no hesitation, he made a reference to Jeffrey Epstein, quickly brushing off the audience's reaction by saying he knew some of them were connected, but he did not care, even joking about how they all arrived on their own private planes. And from the very beginning, the monologue was intense and unforgiving as he criticized Hollywood's habit of praising itself, took aim at major streaming platforms, and made pointed remarks about diversity, privilege, and the growing gap between celebrity culture and everyday life. But the moment that stood out above everything else was when he mentioned Jeffrey Epstein, comparing the controversial circumstances around his death to a plot twist from his own show, dropping the name into the room with the effect of a shockwave, as the audience reacted with gasps and uneasy laughter. And then came the line that would later spread across the internet and be replayed countless times as he told the crowd to be quiet, adding that he knew Epstein was their friend, but he did not care. And instead of moving on, he continued to press the point, making it even sharper by noting that unlike his fictional character, Epstein did not survive, leaving the implication hanging heavily in the room. And as expected, the cameras turned toward the audience, capturing reactions that felt unusually revealing, with nervous laughter, forced smiles, and expressions that seemed to communicate far more than any prepared response ever could. And among those reactions, Tom Hanks was seen looking genuinely uncomfortable, which only added to the tension of the moment, because these were not the reactions of people who simply missed the joke, but rather of people who fully understood what was being said. And to truly grasp why that moment mattered so much, it is important to understand who Ricky Gervais is, and perhaps even more importantly, who he is not.
You are so brilliant, and you are so constantly making us aware of crossing the line in the most sort of brutal but sensitive way that you realize as a comedian there is no line.
There is no. I wouldn't say
there's no line.
No, it's like it depends on the joke. You know, it's funny because journalists say to me, "Is there anything you wouldn't joke about?" And I say, "Is there anything you wouldn't write about?" It depends,
right.
And I think that's where a lot of offence comes. People mistake the subject of a joke with the actual target, and they're not. You know, they're not the same. You can joke about anything, but it depends what the joke is, and comedy comes from a good place. And I deal in taboo subjects because I do like that little, what's he going to say? And it's always okay, you know, because just because you're joking about something, it doesn't mean you're anti it or pro it. And I think that's the other thing. I think people think there's an angle, like a joke's a joke. We don't mean it. We're trying to make you laugh. It's a, you know, it's a play on words.
It's not your position on it.
Yeah, it's not a TED Talk.
No, exactly. Yeah. And I hate that when people think that, you know, a joke is the window to the comedian's true soul. I'll pretend to be left-wing, I'll pretend to be right-wing, I'll pretend to be clever, I'll pretend to be stupid, whatever makes the joke funnier. And most people know that, but it's like some people who, they want to be offended. They go, that's terrible, you shouldn't joke about that. I once tweeted a thing saying, what's the one thing you should never joke about? 1,000 different answers. And that was my set list.
And you one-handed tweet, which is very impressive.
Now, welcome, Ronan.
Good to be here.
In this statement from NBC, which I should say is 6 pages long.
Very detailed.
Yeah, NBC News President Noah Oppenheim says your book is, quote, built on a series of distortions, confused timelines, and outright inaccuracies.
Look, this book is an extraordinarily meticulously fact-checked work of investigative journalism. It's 2 years of reporting. One of the senior fact-checkers at The New Yorker checked it. I'll let the reporting in the book stand on its own. We're very confident in it, and it's been amazing to see how the press has rallied around it. I think people have seen it for what it is.
What have you heard from people inside NBC?
There has been an outpouring of support from journalists at this company and sources coming forward saying they too have stories. That's very common. All of this is honestly very common with these kinds of investigative stories. When I reported those stories about CBS that you just mentioned, similar campaign to undercut the reporting that revved up and similar support that ultimately carried the day.
Well, there was always two sides to every story. I'm really curious because Matt Lauer came out really with guns blazing, responding to you. It made it very clear from his point of view that it was certainly consensual and she was very willing. This really is a he said, she said story, Rona, at the end of the day, the allegations about Matt Lauer. How do you decide who is telling the truth here?
So I think one of the transformations of recent years is that we've come to understand that actually, I come at this from a legal background, you can corroborate claims of violence. And Brooke Neville's claim has been found credible even by NBC News, which took the step of firing Matt Lauer. And same by me and by the fact checkers working on this. She describes an evening that matches up with a timeline given by others there. There were eyewitnesses to what happened before and after that moment. She described this event consistently over the years. And look, it's telling that NBC News paid her a 7-figure settlement to ensure that she can't talk about what the network knew about this.
Well, I want to stop you about your fact-checking process because Matt Lauer's lawyer says many allegations that are being circulated were never raised during any fact-checking process. And despite repeated requests for an advance copy of the book, have not been provided to me. Did you have a conversation? Did you talk to Matt at any time?
Look, very often, without talking about Matt Lauer specifically, as you know, in our profession, people will fact check or have conversations and give you the responses in an off-the-record capacity or under some other ground rule that prevents me from answering a question directly like that. However, I will say that every single individual where there's a serious allegation against them described in this book had an ample, fair window to fact check. And with respect to Matt Lauer specifically, when you read the book, it's very clear this section is fair and even generous to him, and his thinking is reflected in detail. So there was nothing surprising in that letter except, obviously, as many survivors have commented on, the tone, which was very angry and had some menace in it, was surprising to some people.
One of the major discrepancies between what NBC is saying and what you're reporting is the question of agreements prior to Matt Lauer's firing, apparently involving women, apparently involving misbehavior. NBC says this morning that those were completely routine, not related to What makes you say otherwise?
Tony, they had a euphemism at this company called enhanced severance. And we talked to multiple people involved in each of those transactions, including senior executives on the NBC side who were involved in them, who said these were explicitly arrangements to shut up women with allegations of misconduct within this company. And that's something we saw at CBS. We've seen in other media companies. And it's a practice that correctly is being called into question by journalists.
They say in this statement enhanced severance was routine and was paid out to hundreds, if not thousands of people.
And what we document in this book is that these settlements were an elevated amount that was atypical. And look, we fully include in the book their claim that it is coincidental that these women had complaints about Matt Lauer and about others, including executives there. The people involved say something else.
The bulk of the book, though, is about your efforts to tell the Harvey Weinstein story and working. It's very ironic that the Black Cube people that were following you, allegedly at Harvey's request, end up reaching out to you because they wanted to talk to you about how they felt about the job they were doing. But the bulk of the book is about your efforts to tell the Harvey Weinstein story, and in the end, NBC killed the story because they said you did not have enough facts that didn't reach their level of journalism. How do we know that this is not just, they're saying it's an axe to grind on your part?
So the book is, as I said, fair and even generous to them. At every turn, there was a very extensive fact-checking process to make sure every one of their rebuttals is in there.
Because the Harvey story didn't run on NBC, you ultimately took it to
the New Yorker, and
it wasn't renewed.
Obviously the producer who worked on that story at a working level put out a piece in the last few days corroborating that, saying we were ordered to stop, and that is the point, Gail. There are untruths being put out by NBC. There's lies in that statement that wouldn't fact-check. They admitted to us they never fact-checked any of these memos that you referred to.
What made Gervais stand out that night was not only the jokes themselves, but the boldness behind them. Because he had no publicist in the room shaping his image, no upcoming film to promote, and no studio deal to protect. And as he openly admitted, he was finished with hosting. And that level of independence gave him the freedom to say things that no one else on that stage would have dared to say. And for years, documents connected to Jeffrey Epstein's activities had remained sealed, heavily edited, or tied up in legal battles. But then a slow yet powerful wave of releases began to surface and completely change the situation. And the first major phase came in February 2025, when Attorney General Pamela Bondi announced the release of what she described as an initial batch of declassified documents. And these files included flight logs from Epstein's private jet, a detailed contact book, an evidence inventory, and other materials that had previously been kept hidden from the public. And at the time, Bondi explained that this release was part of a broader effort to bring transparency and accountability to a case that had remained in the shadows for far too long.
The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin. The Dow is over 50,000 right now. The S&P at almost 7,000. And the NASDAQ smashing records. Americans' 401ks and retirement savings are booming. That's what we should be talking about. We should be talking about making Americans safe. We should be talking about, what does a Dow have to do with anything? That's what they just asked. Are you kidding?
Mr. Jordan, Mr. Jordan.
It's not surprising because I think she's been a terrible AG. I think what's surprising is that the core of her issue is that she has been politically loyal to him and not the rule of law. So what does surprise me is that again and again, she has desecrated this department. I served as a former federal prosecutor. As a part of the prosecutor, I was proud. I thought it was a patriotic job. And what she has done again and again is choose Trump over country. So for him to fire her and point to the Epstein files, that's actually her standing behind him. She's completely, she screwed the roll-up of that, but it's not because she was trying to do the right thing. It's because again and again, she was trying to obstruct justice in rolling out this so-called client list that she said existed. She said it was going to be released. Now there's no list. In handling redactions and taking the amount of federal agents from doing things like counterterrorism, she put them on handling thousands of names, seeking President Trump's name and redacting him. So do I think he should fire her? Yes, but for the reasons that he's going to do it, absolutely.
What followed was months filled with legal disputes, political controversy, and growing public pressure. And then in November 2025, the United States Congress passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which President Donald Trump signed into law on November 19th of that year. And the law required the full release of all relevant Department of Justice records connected to the case. And by February 2026, Pamela Bondi confirmed that the files had been released in compliance with the Act, stating that no records were withheld due to embarrassment or concerns about reputation. And the documents that came out presented the image of an incredibly well-connected individual who operated at the highest levels of global society, as flight logs showed who had traveled on his private aircraft, while contact books listed a vast network of influential names. And although legal experts made it clear that simply appearing in these records did not prove any wrongdoing, the sheer scale of the connections revealed was shocking to many. And when Bondi submitted her letter to Congress, along with the final release of documents in February 2026, it included something especially striking, which was an alphabetical list of more than 300 high-profile individuals, whose names appeared somewhere within the materials that had been made public.
Donald Trump chose Pam Bondi
to be his next attorney general. How familiar are you with Pam Bondi? But before you answer that, answer me this question. How many of you knew that Matt Gaetz wouldn't be able to fill those attorney general's shoes? I'll wait. Knowing about the allegations, knowing about the scandals, I think even Matt knew he wouldn't pan out. And after that meeting with the senators, he decided to step down when he figured out who was with him and who wasn't with him. But now let's get to who Miss Pam Bondi is. The first woman attorney general, the first woman chief of staff. Let's talk about her. Over the last 4 years, Miss Pam Bondi has been in war with the media, and she held her own. She's known for being against all the scandals. She's known for being against the deep state. She's also a Trump impeachment attorney. Needless to say, she is a strong and intelligent woman. But now let me ask you, do you think that she's qualified for the position? Now, aside from the controversy where they're saying that she took a $25,000 donation from Trump in 2013, her track record is squeaky clean. Honestly, her resume speaks volumes.
The most important point, and one that needs to be stated clearly, is that appearing on this list did not mean that a person had done anything wrong, because some names were included simply because Epstein had collected articles or information about powerful individuals, while others appeared in his well-known contact book, and some were mentioned in emails, statements, or testimony that had nothing to do with any direct personal relationship. And according to the legal explanation provided, the list included individuals identified as government officials, politically exposed persons, or public figures whose names appeared at least once within the documents. But even with that clarification, the wide range of names was still surprising, stretching from current and former presidents to members of royalty, and from internationally recognized musicians and actors to major business leaders and financiers, and the list covered figures from across the entire political spectrum, making it impossible to treat the situation as a purely partisan issue, as Republicans, Democrats, foreign officials, and well-known entertainment figures all appeared within the records, and names such as Naomi Campbell, Alec Baldwin, Mick Jagger, George Clooney, Beyoncé, and Bruce Springsteen were mentioned alongside numerous political figures, while Prince Andrew had already faced serious consequences long before these latest document releases, and Kathy Rumler, a senior lawyer at Goldman Sachs, stepped down after questions were raised about her past communication with Epstein, showing that the impact of these revelations was not only real, but also extended across multiple powerful circles.
One of the most powerful people in the Epstein Files is somebody you may not have heard of. Her name is Kathy Rumler, and she is one of the people who communicated with Jeffrey Epstein the most, according to emails released last month from Epstein's estate by House investigators. She's a former White House counsel to Barack Obama, and now top lawyer at one of the world's most powerful banks, Goldman Sachs. Records show that before she joined the bank, they exchanged more than 100 emails, and Epstein's schedule lists them having more than 50 planned meetings between 2014 and 2019, long after he was a registered offender. Across the many messages, Rumler emerges as a confidant and friend to Epstein, and he turned to her for help for managing his public reputation after he was convicted of soliciting from a. In one 2019 message, for example, Epstein wrote that Rumler helped him craft a statement in response to a forthcoming Washington Post editorial that was calling on Congress to investigate him. He referred to it as the Rumler Proposal. The statement defended Epstein and denied that he ever received a sweetheart deal. This is what Kathy suggests we tell Washington Post, Epstein said. While Rumler told CNN that she did not represent Epstein and was not compensated by him, she did not directly answer whether she ever crafted PR statements for him or advised him on media strategy. Rumler said she had no knowledge of any new or ongoing unlawful activity by Epstein. In an email to Epstein in June 2018, Rumler dismissed a Daily Beast story about allegations against him, describing it as a, quote, novella of rehashed crap. Now, Rumler told CNN she was referring to the article, not the allegations against Epstein, and said, "I have deep sympathy for anyone victimized by Epstein, and as I have said many times, I regret ever knowing him." But at the time, Rumler's correspondence with Epstein often appeared to go beyond professional matters. They gossiped about current events, arranged celebrity lunches and dinners. Epstein even appears to have coordinated some of her personal beauty appointments. In her statement to CNN, Rumler referred to Epstein as a business referral source and said she knew him in a, quote, professional capacity when she worked in private practice. Rumler told CNN, "I did not travel with him, go out to dinner with him, or spend time with him one-on-one, except in a professional setting." As has been well established, Epstein's calendars and schedules often do not reflect reality. What's so interesting about Rumler is that unlike other Epstein associates like Larry Summers or Prince Andrew, who have paid a steep price for their association with Epstein, Rumler has managed to fly under the radar. She remains at Goldman Sachs, which so far has chosen to stand by her.
Here is where things become genuinely interesting, because when a scandal of this size breaks, the public usually expects at least some celebrities to come forward, make statements, and explain their positions, but instead what followed was something much more revealing, which was an almost complete silence from some of the most famous names in the world. And while a few individuals did respond, including Bill Clinton, whose past connections to Epstein had already been widely discussed, and who issued a statement through his office, the overwhelming majority of those named, especially within the entertainment industry, said nothing at all, creating what felt like a vacuum. And although it is likely that legal teams were working behind the scenes, public voices were noticeably absent, and this silence itself became a major part of the story. Because in an age where celebrities constantly speak out on social media about everything from elections to everyday opinions and even restaurant choices, this sudden collective silence was impossible to ignore, as the same public figures who carefully manage their image through curated posts and polished statements were suddenly nowhere to be seen, while at the same time old footage began resurfacing online at the worst possible moment, including clips from the Golden Globes audience showing uncomfortable laughter during Gervais' monologue that began circulating alongside the newly released documents, and the contrast between those moments was striking, as what once looked like simple awkward laughter in 2020 began to appear very different to many viewers in light of new information, although it is important to clearly state again that uncomfortable laughter at a public event is not proof of anything by itself, but rather part of a much larger conversation about perception, power, and how narratives change over time. And ultimately what this entire situation raises are questions that go far beyond any single name on any list, because it forces a deeper examination of how influence operates within elite environments, how accountability can be uneven depending on status and connections, and why it took so many years for large parts of this information to become public, especially when considering the timeline that Epstein was first arrested in 2006 and later received a controversial plea deal that many legal experts criticized as unusually lenient, then was arrested again in 2019 before dying in custody that August under circumstances that continue to fuel public skepticism despite official conclusions. And it was not until 2025 that a significant wave of document releases began, followed by a full release announced in 2026, meaning nearly 2 decades passed between his first arrest and the public finally gaining a more complete...
You first started giving money away. The bulk of that has gone to the Bill Gates Foundation. What have you thought about all the emails in the Epstein files related to Bill Gates?
Well, I won't say what I thought about them, particularly related to Bill Gates, but I would say it's astounding me how human people are. I mean, here you had a guy that was a convicted guy, a sensational con man, and the percentage of people that he knocked off, I mean, whether it was, he found their weakness. It might be power, it might be whatever it might be. And I don't see how anybody could have pulled that off. And of course, all these figures think that it's going, when he dies, that they basically lied about it before, but I mean,
lied about their associations with Epstein, you mean?
Well, I mean, they've rationalized it one way or another, and now it's all getting opened up, and of course, I'm so happy the guy didn't stop in Omaha ever. I mean, or that I didn't live in New York. If I'd lived in New York, at some party I would have been at some damn thing, and where people always are asking to take a picture, and I usually do. I'm so used to doing it with students. I always do these gag pictures where I'm picking some guy's pocket or proposing to some woman or some damn thing, and I thank heavens I never came near the guy, and I had read the article in Vanity Fair in 2003.
The one that laid out what a mysterious and strange figure he was.
It went as far as somebody's worried about libel suits goes.
Well, it made him sound like a fraud, for sure.
Yeah,
I've read that article recently at your suggestion.
And the interesting thing is, he got his start at Bear Stearns. Yeah. And they knew him. They knew he lied to them on all kinds of things. And Ace Greenberg was a good friend of mine. Well, Jimmy Kane may have been actually running the firm by then, I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. But Ace Greenberg always was looking for, he had a guy that, the son of a friend of mine, that he hired just to be his ferret. His job was to look for anything that was old or large that traders might have stuck in their desk. Or, I mean, he was worried about people. But somehow, Ace's daughter, I guess, was dating Epstein or something. And that guy must have been the con man of all time.
But it's one thing to be a con man. It's another thing to be trafficking.
Absolutely. And being prosecuted. And even though he managed to jiggle his way through that thing with, whoever the Attorney General was then, that one way or another, he did not really spend much time in his cell, but he had a way of conning everybody. I mean, he probably, who knows what he offered.
Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick faced bipartisan pressure to explain communications that suggested he had once considered a visit to Epstein's private island. And although the trip never actually happened, the political fallout still spread across both sides of the aisle in a way that made the situation difficult to reduce to any simple or clean narrative, as reactions from different political groups overlapped and complicated the public conversation rather than clarifying it.
He opens the door, and there's a massage table in the middle of the room, and candles all around and stuff. So I ask very insightful, cutting questions. I say to him, massage table in the middle of your house? How often do you have a massage? And he says, every day. And then he gets weirdly close to me. Ooh. And he says, and the right kind of massage. Ooh. Now my wife is standing here. So she looks at me and I look at her and we say, I'm sorry, we have to go. And we left. And in the 6 or 8 steps it takes to get from his house to my house, my wife and I decided that I will never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again. Really? So I was never in the room with him socially, for business, or for even philanthropy. If that guy was there, I wasn't going because he's gross. And so I look back at it as a gift.
Yes.
He gave me a gift.
Yes.
Of a void. And so, yeah, that's my story. A one and absolutely done.
Ricky Gervais, who stood on that stage in 2020 and looked directly into the eyes of that audience, may have understood something that many people were only beginning to realize, that the links between fame, power, and immunity run much deeper and go much further back than most people in authority are willing to admit. And there is a long history of comedians being the only voices willing to say out loud what everyone else is quietly thinking, as court jesters once held a rare permission to speak uncomfortable truths in front of kings. And satirists throughout history have exposed forms of corruption that journalists could not always safely reach. And sometimes a comedian with nothing to lose and a microphone in hand becomes an unexpected source of accountability, even if they do not present themselves as investigators or whistleblowers, as Gervais never claimed to have inside information or secret evidence, and he never positioned himself as anything other than a comedian telling jokes. But in doing so, he still managed to shine a light on subjects that immense effort had gone into keeping out of view. And the reason those jokes landed so strongly is because enough people in that room recognized there was at least some uncomfortable truth behind them. And in his own style, he often pushed boundaries with lines like saying he targets powerful figures, joking about famous scientists such as Stephen Hawking, and suggesting he could handle criticism. while also making controversial remarks referencing Epstein's Island and questioning the presence of certain well-known individuals there, in a way that blurred the line between comedy and provocation. And after the document releases, his 2020 monologue resurfaced again across social media platforms, gaining millions of new views as clips were shared widely and audiences rewatched the moment in slow motion, analyzing every facial expression and every subtle reaction in the room. And what this demonstrated, whether intentional or not, is that comedy can sometimes act as a form of public accountability when other systems fail, because it is often harder to legally challenge a joke than a formal report, more difficult to suppress a punchline than an official document, and sometimes the most powerful moment in a room filled with secrecy is when a joke lands just nervously enough that everyone understands something unspoken is being touched. And in the end, after decades of connections, years of legal disputes, thousands of pages of records, and endless public debate, it was a comedian from England who may have said something that many people only understood much later.
Redacted, unredacted that they want. And so I think that to the extent that the Epstein Files was a part of the past year of this Justice Department, it should not be a part of anything going forward.
Okay, well, I mean, you've combed through these files, right? Who was Epstein spying for?
Look, everything, I don't know that he was spying for anybody. Nobody's ever said that.
No? You don't think he might have been a spy for a foreign country?
I have no idea if he was a spy. All I know is that we don't have any evidence in the Epstein files that the FBI collected over 15 years that suggests that, Jesse. I don't know. I wasn't part of the original prosecution team, neither was Attorney General Bondi. And I can tell you this, there's only one president that's held Mr. Epstein accountable, and that's Donald J. Trump. During his first administration, that was the administration that prosecuted him, and during this administration, it's the administration that's been totally transparent and released all the files. And no matter how much criticism people want to make about the Epstein files, that is indisputable. It's undisputable that nobody talked about the Epstein files for 4 years during Biden, 4 years. And so when President Trump said, let's release the Epstein files, and the law was passed that allowed us to legally do it, we did it.
The so-called files story is still not over. And in fact, in July 2025, a Department of Justice memo stated that no official client list existed in the form many people had expected, and that no credible evidence had been found to support claims of organized blackmail against well-known public figures. Although critics from across the political spectrum have continued to challenge that conclusion, and legal experts are still debating what the released documents actually prove and what they do not, while the reputational impact on those named continues to unfold in real time. And what remains clear is that a wide network of influential individuals was connected to Jeffrey Epstein over many years, that some of those individuals have faced consequences while others have not, and that the complete truth, whatever it ultimately proves to be, has still not been fully revealed in a clear or satisfying way. And looking back at Ricky Gervais' performance, it is difficult to ignore how the audience reacted in that moment, because while he may have presented it as comedy, the response in the room suggested something deeper was being recognized. And as more documents continue to surface and more names are discussed, one question keeps repeating itself, which is if a comedian could sense something from a stage in 2020, then why did it take so long for everyone else to fully confront it? And with that in mind, the discussion continues as audiences are invited to share their thoughts, engage with more content, and stay connected for future updates.